Hi, so welcome to another episode of Expat Experts. And today we've got with us two special guests, Nicola Crowther and Lubna Khan. Both worked together for the last 10 years called Crowther Mediation. So both are specialist mediators, family mediators in Dubai, especially for families and also international families abroad as well. I'm going to switch over and ask you a little bit, so if both can introduce yourselves, what you both do, because I know you both do a few different things as well, just for our listeners, and we can kind of get into some questions about a bit more about your practice.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So Nicola, do you want to start?
Absolutely. So as a mediator, we practice family mediation, civil mediation, and workplace mediation. And we do that here in the UAE and in the UK as well. And so we set up in the UAE in 2022, so we've been here 2 years now.
Okay.
We had intended to set up pre-pandemic, of course, but unfortunately we weren't able to, so it had to go on ice for a little while. But we identified a real need for this sort of 2018, 2019. And so, since we set up out here, it has gone from strength to strength. There is a big need for it. There is a big demand for what we do. So as a mediator, we're doing those services, but also I teach and train mediators as well.
Oh, wow.
So I work with Lubna at the Middlesex University in Dubai, and we deliver civil mediation training there.
Oh, wow.
And we do negotiation training courses for large
companies. I
knew
you both did something with the university, but I didn't know exactly what it was. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, so Lubna will tell you, no doubt, that she's amazing. She
Lubna
lectures law at the university, but
So no, Lubna was telling, I could hear you talking about what you're lecturing in law. So you've got your hands full. So you've got mediation clients, then lecturing is hard work.
Yeah. So I do both.
I know.
I try to do the best of my ability.
Yes.
So I again, like Nicola said, I am a commercial mediator, a family mediator, do family mediation out here and in the UK. I also lecture at Middlesex University, so I'm a senior lecturer there in law and politics. So I'm teaching undergraduate and postgraduate classes, but also I do training with Nicola. And I do training out here with the university, and I do it internationally, and I do it at the DIFC. So,
oh wow! So you've got a lot going on, both of you,
yeah.
Sounds really interesting, though. So, should we start with the first question?
Yeah. So, let's begin with perhaps what inspired both of you, whether it's similar things or different things, to get into this line of work, and in particular to work sort of in Dubai as well.
Yeah, I had a career in law, obviously, before I trained as a mediator in 2010. And at that time in the UK, I thought that that's the direction that things were heading in. I could see it, that people were trying to find an alternative form of dispute resolution rather than going to court. And so I took the plunge and did it, and it's paid off. But it was a plunge because.
So were you practicing as a solicitor?
Yes, I was.
So, but you were. I know you were. But I didn't know for sure if you were. So you both were solicitors.
So, absolutely. So both have a good firm background in law.
Yeah.
And then I decided that I loved it so much that I didn't want to wear both hats.
Sure.
Yes. I needed to pick one.
And you preferred.
And I preferred mediation.
Brilliant.
So that's what I did. So then set up Crowther Mediation in 2000.
So how did you meet Lubna then? Was it just like you knew each other in the UK?
Lubna.
yes.
Oh wow!
So she trained me.
I trained
So she's
her
like
one
a
of my
protege?
mediation, and and you should
amazing.
pick the best one on the course.
Yes, when you see potential.
Absolutely, I identified brilliance and thought, I'm going to get her.
Thank you.
And did your teaching stuff come afterwards and you moved out here, or was that planned?
So similarly, I'm a lawyer,
Yes.
a commercial lawyer. I practiced in England, and then I went into teaching there. So I was teaching at law school, so training lawyers. And then I came out here, joined the university. I'd always liked the idea of mediation.
Yes.
Always liked it as a tool for resolving conflict. So I firstly qualified as a commercial mediator, and then for me, really, in my personal life, I actually underwent a separation and a divorce, and I started meeting people out here, in the region and in Dubai that had been through a similar journey as me, and I really quickly identified that we, expats needed this service, and so I decided to qualify as a family mediator. That's when
you met Nicola,
and then we've taken it from there, and now.
And then the whole idea was there, but then it kind of came to fruition after COVID. I think COVID brought out a lot of things for people, especially if you probably knew that there was a need, but then thought, hang on, we need to do this now.
Yeah.
But since you've started it, like really kind of started it here in the UAE, how have people taken to it? Like, is it quite like, is people taking to it? Are people coming forward for mediation, or are you kind of just, you're picking them up from Crowther Mediation, and then you find out they're international, like in Dubai, the landscape itself? How is it working?
I think in reality, it's hard because people don't know it exists. People don't know that it's an option. I always say it's like most things, you know, when you're separated and you're in conflict, the first thing you do is go and see a lawyer. You know, if you're in pain, you would go and see a doctor first of all. And that doctor might refer you on for some acupuncture or some physiotherapy or something else. But people will first and foremost go to their lawyer if they're in conflict. And so it's about educating the wider public that we exist as an option, but then speaking to lawyers out here and saying we're here. And so
you know
many
what's
of them say
crazy
they
though?
don't know we're here.
We obviously only established the actual office last year, but I said to us straight away, I said we need good mediators because we can't deal with everything, and we need to, you know, pass it on basically. So see if there's, especially if there's a sticking point, there's a conflict, like you guys just need to go off and reach an agreement and come back to us, and we'll just do the easier stuff, because we're not trained mediators, and it's really hard. So Alex was looking for ages, and then obviously we came across your details, and I was like, you know, we need to connect with them. So I'm so glad we did, because I think we talked to one or two more, but they weren't as available, or they were saying, oh, we do kind of psychotherapy and other things. And we were like, is that what our clients need? They need mediators that can deal with their disputes, who have got kids, and who are trained, and especially if you're UK trained as well. That for us being UK lawyers, it's more, because lots of clients will call us British as well. And I think being able to pass on also British trained mediators is more better than maybe someone that's trained elsewhere. And I'm not trying to say that, you know, we can't pass it on to anyone else. It's just, I think we know that you've done it through a proper system as well. I'm so glad we found you as well.
Absolutely, feelings mutual. But you're right, we are the only UK accredited family mediators with a license to practice.
Yeah, you should shout about that as well.
We are the only ones.
Put it on some t-shirts.
So
you should.
Yeah, we don't shout enough about that. So
No, it's impressive.
But that's why getting you on here, making it, you know, telling people what you do, and getting you to talk about your experience, I think it's really good for listeners as well.
Yes.
I think that the listeners would also probably benefit, and I think you're both extremely well placed to answer this question, and it's in terms of how mediation differs from your sort of typical legal advice in terms of a family dispute or another dispute, because I know you deal with other aspects, not just family mediation. So I think that could be quite helpful, just to see how that is a different service altogether, or how it might even complement it as well. So
and it is an entirely different service, and you're right, the two things shouldn't intermingle. And we smile all the time, but lots of people will say, oh, I'm a mediator, I've mediated, you know, and it is a completely different thing. And people think they can do it, but actually if you ever did the mediation training course, you would realise there's so many nuances and levels to it, that it is actually a skill set all of it.
But what I want to highlight is what you should shout about as well is there's being a mediator, but there's also being an international family mediator, because people don't realise when you're dealing with expat families, there's different issues that you won't have in your own home country. So we have this when we're dealing with families and people about disputes and different issues, and being international makes you stand out. You're different. So you know when you get a couple who are living out here, one's from here, one's from there, but they're living here, you're a specialist in that field. Not everyone can do it.
Yeah, you're dead right. The pressures are different, the issues are different, you know, not just culturally and jurisdictionally, but, you know, the day-to-day issues here, you know, and the asset base is different here to what it is in the UK, you know, or anywhere else. And so it's trying to work that out. And as you say, it's international. It isn't just UAE. We're trying to work out what they've got in their countries of origin, what assets they've got there, and how that plays into this. So it's a lot to think about, and a lot to take on board, way more than just, as you say, your average UK mediator.
So when you take a case on, how do you know it's definitely suitable for mediation? This is like a general question. So we say to you, there's this couple, or there's this family, we're dealing with mom, can you help? How do you know when you speak to them on the first conversation, one of you, like, how do you know, like, this is definitely, we can deal with this? What is your checklist?
To be honest, I think we would agree that most things, if everything can be mediated, I don't think there's anything that wouldn't be suitable here that could be mediated. I mean, we would meet with the clients, and often we have we always have a one-to-one with each party. And that's when we identify what issues there are that need to be talked about in mediation. We kind of look at their motivations, the dynamic between the other party and them. And they get the chance we ask questions, they get the chance to ask questions as well. And usually, as I said, everything is suitable to be mediated. What we really want to see from parties is that they are truly committed to engaging in the process.
That's the main thing,
We can sometimes have, and Nicola's probably agree with this, that, we might have unresponsive parties, some that don't really want to engage.
Yeah.
But even those sort of non-verbal cues are responses. I mean, it could be that they just don't see the value in the process, and that's for us to tell them there is value in it. But, having said that, just getting them to commit, and particularly in relation to like financial disclosure, that's quite a big one. That's quite material. That's quite an essential element
to commit to
the mediation.
Yeah.
We want to see that they're going to commit to that. They're going to give us full disclosure of their finances, because we need to see what's in the pot. Families, parties, they need to make
because our role's
decisions.
different. We have to push it, and we have to. We can enforce that and say, well, they're not disclosing, and then it can go to court. Or obviously, your job is to make sure they voluntarily are doing it properly.
Yeah.
It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah. Lubna's dead right. What we're really looking for here is a commitment to the process. And as soon as we get an inkling that somebody's not going to do the process, or they're trying to use mediation as a means of avoiding financial disclosure or circumnavigating the court process and not doing it properly.
Bit of a red flag.
Well, then we say, hang on, we're not doing it. It's not suitable for mediation anymore.
Sure.
So that would be the big indicator. It wouldn't be suitable if they're not committed.
I suppose, following on from that, what are the sorts of challenges and challenging family dynamics that you often see in your sort of roles and in your line of work, and how would you navigate them in a mediation session?
I would say it's what we've already talked about. I think the most challenging thing in this region is having two parties who may be from different countries.
Sure.
For example, we'd have the husband's from the UK, the wife is from South Africa. They had a destination wedding, say in the Seychelles. Mother resides here with the children, so the children are in Dubai. They've got assets in the UK, and so there's lots of challenges there jurisdictionally.
Sure.
And and this is not just challenging for us, it's challenging for the court. How would they, get around those issues? So that's the perfect thing about mediation, is that they can come to their unique agreement, through the mediation process. And so we are sort of getting around and navigating those issues.
So that comes to the next question, like what are the strategies or effective strategies you think work with these couples and families? Like, do you have any specific ones, or you just kind of go with the flow and just see what they're about? These people are about, these clients are about.
In terms of strategies, we would never put clients in the same room.
Yes.
And so our job really is to keep them separate.
So you talk to them individually.
And because we have that impartiality, it means that you get them to invest in you as a mediator and build trust and rapport.
So just a question now. So obviously, if we've got a couple, you're talking to mum and dad, husband and wife. Wife is saying one thing, and then you go back to her husband and say, look, wife's saying this. And then husband then has a message for mum saying, I want to have 3 nights with the kids instead of 4, instead of 2. And then you go back to her and you kind of are you kind of going back and forth?
We're the messengers, the go-betweens, And what we're doing really is reframing what's being said a lot of the time. So what might be said in venom and heat and all the rest of it, our job is to strip all of that stuff out and take the message down the corridor in a much nicer tone.
And that kind of works then?
It absolutely works, because if it's coming out of our mouth,
it's different.
Then they'll listen to it. If it's coming out of the mouth of the person they don't particularly
they don't hear it as well.
No.
Because maybe he said that about 50 times, but she just chose to ignore it. But when you're saying it in a different way, they listen. So that's one of your strategies then.
And I think also, just on the back of that, it's about recognising what are the underlying issues here. So if somebody is saying, for dad saying, well, I used him 3 nights, and mum saying, no, they can't go at all. Why is dad saying what he's saying? What does he really want? What does he need? And why is mum saying what she's saying?
Exactly.
So let's see, there may be a different way this could be addressed.
Yeah,
it's not actually about the amount of nights I don't
Yeah.
have to see them.
Yeah.
It's something else. Let's find the underlying.
Yeah, so it's like
Yeah.
mum saying, I want to relocate, I want to go back home, and dad saying, maybe in the future, and dad saying, no way.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of working out, trying to...
Why not?
Yeah.
And how can they fix it?
How
And
can
we're
you
always
fix
putting them
this?
into
Yeah.
what we call problem-solving mode and saying,
Okay.
okay, well, what can you do about it? It's not for us to find the solution. We're
Sure.
not going to wave a wand, but we are going to say, well, look, we narrow it down to these options. Which one is going to work best? And you have to pick one, because if you don't, we have to constantly remind clients what the alternatives are. The alternative is that you end up in a court process
Yes.
where a stranger
Yeah.
makes a decision about your children, and how
Sure.
do they feel about that? So
Yeah. Because we get two extremes. We get like, we agree everything's amicable,
Yes.
so obviously great,
Yeah.
we just need to get this agreement done and filed, and then we get the complete opposite sometimes, and it's just they cannot talk to each other, they can't stand to be
Yes.
near each other, and they need lawyers, but it's like, is that the best way?
yeah.
Not really. I'm very pro mediation. I'm like, hang on, this might be one for mediation, because
Yeah.
we will try so much as well, but when we see that they're not agreeing, this is not our role to play, and I think a mediator would be able to kind of get them both sat down and just even individually, like you said,
Yes.
and work out what they want.
Yeah. In terms of myth busting, that's one of
Yes.
the biggest myths
Oh, yeah.
around mediation, that
Yes.
they think they're going to have to sit around a table and look at
Yeah.
each other. And the thought of doing that is terrifying for a lot of clients, and it's the one thing that puts them all off. And as soon as we say, no, you will arrive at different times, and you won't see each other at all at any point in the process. You can see the visible relief, at that, and then suddenly they warm up to the idea of doing it and see the benefit and the value
So
of
do you
it.
find it the work, like, would you say the work is challenging, or would you say it's actually you really enjoy it? Like, do you feel really satisfied when you've got them to agree or see eye to eye? What would you say is the best thing about being mediators?
The reward.
Yes,
The reward,
undoubtedly.
yeah.
Say the same.
Yeah,
Like, we've really helped
absolutely.
this family.
And sometimes the more challenging something is, the more rewarding it is at the
Yes,
end, isn't it?
often.
But the big thing, whenever I'm teaching mediation, I've always got a trainee mediator in tow somewhere, but I'm always saying to them, it isn't your problem to fix. Don't make it personal. You don't have to find the solution here. So don't get worried or anxious about it. You're going to help these people as best you can, but ultimately it isn't yours, So in terms of that, I always think that it's challenging, but you have to remind yourself that you're not the decision maker here.
One of the last things I want to add is, when we spoke, and I think we've touched on it in conversations, about children coming into mediation. Do you want to talk a bit about what you do there? Just so listeners know as well what else your services you provide for families.
That's a really big thing, Samara. Thank you for raising that. We do child inclusive mediation, they call it, and essentially it involves Lubna and I both are trained to speak to children whose parents are going through separation or divorce. And we speak to them to find out what their wishes and feelings are. Now, in the UK, traditionally, this has been a role that's been done by like a court welfare officer, CAFCAS, There isn't that out here in the UAE. There is not that option. And someone said to me once, as a lawyer, we would just take a witness statement from the child.
Oh my goodness.
I'm a mother of children.
Yeah,
and I think my children would absolutely
No,
implode themselves if
that
they
is
had
not
to go
ideal
to
at
a
all.
lawyer's office to make a witness statement after school. Nobody does that. So I think
Never mind after school club.
Exactly, yeah. So we like to think we're the softer version of
Yes,
that. But
sure.
we'll most commonly do it online, because children just are so comfortable on that platform, and in their own bedroom, and they can talk quietly and freely, and the idea is that they talk uninterrupted without anybody else present. So
Because
it's completely
we've got a
confidential
client which we might pass on to you, and his is where their children are adopted. Obviously, they're the kids, and he has them. And we kind of mentioned maybe mediation might work, because mum is in a lot of conflict about she really doesn't want to have the kids, she doesn't see them as much, and he's like, why is mum not giving them time?
Yes.
She's paying for things, but why does she not want a relationship with them at all?
Yes.
And they miss her. So I was like, it might be worth getting the kids in to talk. So mum understands, actually, I should give them a bit more time.
Yeah.
But maybe she's got issues that need resolving as well. So this is one what we might pass on to you. So
Absolutely,
it's interesting.
It is
but I
one
thought
of the
we
most rewarding things we do.
And instead of
speaking
like
to
writing
children,
letters, and
because they just get it all off
Yes,
their chest,
absolutely.
and they just open up and they tell us everything. And then I always say, okay, I'm speaking to your mum and dad again tomorrow. what do you want me to tell them? Is there anything you don't want me to say? And 99 times out of 100, they'll say, if you can just tell them everything.
Yeah.
So it's different
brilliant.
to counselling, because
Yeah.
in counselling, they tell somebody the problem, but then that problem doesn't get fixed. Nothing
But
happens
what we
with
could
it.
do also
Whereas
is, I
we
mean, with
fix it.
you know, we could always use your kind of, if the court would allow it, like Abu Dhabi Civil Court,
Yeah.
we could always put forward your, you know, if you have talked to the kids in a particular case of how they feel. So maybe a judge, because obviously they are a bit more flexible, they may accept that evidence to say, well, actually, okay,
Yeah.
children have spoken to these mediators that are recognised and this is how they feel.
Yeah.
So at least they've got that point of view when it comes to anything to do with relocation, for example,
Yes.
anything else. So we're going to have to wrap up soon. So I wanted to ask the last two questions. So
Go
A,
on.
how do people get in touch with you? And B, some advice from both of you for our listeners on, because our show is called The Expat Experts. You are experts in your field. You deal with expats all the time, international clients. Like some wisdom or some pearls of thought or any advice you want to share with anyone about anything in particular, or it could be to do with your line of work.
Okay. Well,
For both of you.
Pills of wisdom,
Who's
Lubna.
going first? So just some advice for our listeners, you know.
Well,
So
absolutely. So I think anybody who is going through conflict of any kind, be it workplace, civil, commercial stuff, or family stuff, I think first and foremost, do get in touch with a good
Yes.
local lawyer, because we say mediation is not a substitute for legal advice. It never is. It's about sort of coming into this prepared, knowing what your parameters are. So get in touch with a good local lawyer and then mention that you would like to mediate this if possible, so that
Sure.
you come to the mediation process as prepared as possible.
Okay.
I think that's
Get
really
them
key. And then you get the
prepared.
most out of it.
Yes.
And the more, we always say, the more time you, more work you do outside
Yes.
of the room, the less time you spend in it, you know?
Yeah.
So get ready, get
Perfect.
prepared. But I think that, conflict, it takes a village to resolve it. And
Yeah,
there's
it's not
a lot of
easy.
experts involved and contact the
Yeah.
right people, good
Yeah.
people.
Look,
But I would say a similar thing. Consider mediation. It's absolutely vital. Sometimes, having been through it myself, I know that one of the key things about mediation is that we can help parties have an ongoing relationship, which is
Yeah.
really important.
Very important.
Co-parenting is a very important relationship. It's all about the best interests of the children, and that's going to continue for years and years to come, potentially in their lives. So they need to learn how to communicate
Yes.
and be together as co-parents, and that's something mediation can really help them with,
yeah.
opposed to other things. So
No, it's
absolutely
brilliant.
get in touch with us.
But I think what you're
Yes.
both doing is unique.
Yeah.
And we're so glad, like we said, that we found you. So we're glad, you came on. We'd love
No,
to
we're
get you
glad
on
to
another
actually-
one and just discuss something different next time, but in relation to mediation as well. I think our role is in this, on our episodes, is to highlight what experts are doing in their field and how they can help our listeners as well.
Sure.
And details to contact you, we will be adding them on. But if you want to share, what's the best way? Is it email? Is it, do you want to give your
Our
numbers?
website is
Yeah,
so our website is
website.
crowthermediation.ae.
Okay.
And you can email us
So that's the best
anytime
way.
on inquiries.
Just make an inquiry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's all on there. Yeah.
Okay.
Emails are there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
perfect. So people have your
Wonderful.
emails. They can
Yeah.
just go in and we'll obviously direct them as well.
For sure.
Perfect. Okay.
Thank you
so
both
much for
so
coming.
much.
Thank you
Thank
for having us.
you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. It's been
Thanks.
great.